Then there's access to education. So there's the informal education where people just understand how the economy works. I can't tell you how many times I am like, how many people's like financial advisors, just help me understand how this works. How do I invest? How do I balance my checkbook? People just don't have this information. In a knowledge economy, that is how we're keeping people oppressed, by not letting them know how the capitalist system worked. And since I didn't do drugs when I was in college, I figured out, like, how do I change this system? And I couldn't figure it out. Maybe if I had done the drugs, I could have figured it out, but I didn't. Formally, though, what's happening is that kids are being excluded from college. I only went to school because of student loans. The credit crisis actually shut down 20% of the folks who provide student loans. Kids will not be going to college in the fall, and they could be your nieces and nephews. These are not the poor kids that people want to put up on a picture board. These are folks who earned it. But then you think about the failing public school system and those kids who never had a chance from kindergarten. That's a problem. Then there's stable employment. So, I've done some work in the reentry system, and I must say I had to get out because I was tired of people saying, we just need to get him a job. Just get him a job. Everybody had a job placement officer in their organization, but it is so not about a job. Because employment for poor people and for low-income people or the working poor is something they hope to go to every day. It's unstable, it's sporadic, at best case it's seasonal, and in most cases it doesn't have benefits. That's not employment, that's like a half a step ahead of slavery if you ask me. So there's a problem there when we talk about let's get somebody a job. And the interesting piece about this is that what I've learned now that I've gotten older, I turned 40 this year, is that employment is so based on social capital, which most poor people don't have. And then let's talk about institutions. I was a presidential fellow with the Department of Treasury. It was a lovely 2 years of my life. And what I realized is that people can't access the banks, literally and figuratively. In New Mexico, there are no financial institutions on tribal lands. Did you know that? None. Zero. There are more payday loan and check cashing places than there are drugstores, healthcare facilities, and churches in New Mexico. There's a problem. Then, of course, once you get there, you got to hope that you can open an account because this thing called check system has the right to say you don't deserve an account because you're a risk. Well, last time I checked, it wasn't poor people that shut down the S&Ls. So the issue here is that you can't even get there in some cases, and once you get there, you can't get the services you need. People talk about the unbanked. 70% of the unbanked at one point in time had a bank account and decided, why do I pay somebody to keep my money from me and then take it away from me, then tell me when I can get it? And if you're the working poor, you need every dime of that paycheck. Why would you go to a financial institution who's going to hold it for 3 to 5 days? It just doesn't make sense. So the access that people say you have, you really don't have. And then, of course, and there's loads of experts in the room around structural racism. But there are intergenerational poverty that has existed for years. It could take 20 to 30 years to reverse because people have intentionally created policies that exclude the historical oppression of people of color. For John Edwards to admit it, that was something. It's going to keep coming. It's going to come at us until we begin to address things at a structural level. We're going to be in trouble. So enough about the bad news. What do we do? So the good thing is there is some stuff that exists right now. But remember, I was all about trying to flip the script, shift things. So let's look quickly at what exists. So from a business perspective, there's something called entrepreneurship. As somebody who created a company and sold it, I can tell you that it works. I can tell you that it's not easy. But the reality is that if we begin to look at policies that support entrepreneurship, particularly in our urban communities, we are getting a multiplier effect. We are helping entrepreneurs of color create their own wealth and own their own assets and recognize that 70% of the economic growth in this country is due to entrepreneurship. IBM is not creating jobs. They're shipping them abroad. It's the brother like Tony Coleman who's doing bikes and doing all kinds of stuff. It's the folks that are trying to create green-collar jobs. That's what's going to make the economy tick. Now, let's not be naive. Not be naive. It's not that easy to get the venture capital piece. But at least statistics now show that if you invest in an entrepreneur of color, you're at least guaranteed to get a 2x. Now, as a venture capitalist, that's not great. We usually look for 7 to 10, but right now, in the crisis that we have, we'll take a 2x. For people who are putting in $500,000 to get $1 million to $1.5 million back, it's a good investment. The other thing is the Community Reinvestment Act. We must hold our institutions accountable. Now, we can say CRA works, CRA doesn't. To me, the issue is people don't understand what CRA is. It is not about supporting rubber chicken dinners of nonprofit organizations. It is there to make investment in loans. And until we get institutions that can step up and ask those investment in loans, then we got to be able to hold ourselves accountable as well as we do the banks. So there is some opportunity. The final thing which blew my mind is that one of the most effective policies to help children out of poverty has been the Earned Income Tax Credit. It's on a federal level and a state level. The problem is not all states have it. It was enacted in 1975 as a work incentive. In 2006, over 20 million people used this, and they were able to save over $40 billion. The Center on Budget Policies and Priorities said that because of the Earned Income Tax Credit, we were able to reduce the children in poverty by 25%. Imagine if every state had this and everybody took advantage of it. That's a powerful tool. Now, I'm all about what works, but what's some other stuff that we can do? How many people know their credit score? Good for y'all. Good for y'all. Most people don't know their credit score, and most people don't even know how it works. And as somebody who worked with Fair Isaacs for a long time, credit is the idea that you have access. But what also happens, it's a gate opener, but it's also a gate closer. And there are many folks who have no credit, which is actually just as bad as having bad credit. And the challenge is because most people, the things that Fair Isaac tracks, they don't have. So for me, I'm like, let's get an alternative credit score model. Let's track what poor people pay for. Their telephone bill, their rent, their utility payment. Meet people where they are and make it work for them. Right now, the credit score model is a biased indicator of what they think repayment is. I don't know anybody that's working that doesn't have a cell phone because they're worried about their kids. And so for somebody else who our priorities are is just not fair. The other thing is people think that poor people don't want to save. Well, that's not true. And the good thing is poor people don't need incentives to save. We need the right tools and mechanisms. If I put my money in and I don't have $5,000, then all of a sudden you start charging me fees. Once I get $5,000, though, you don't charge me any fees. That's a problem. So you will find that most people will use a check cashing place because it's cheaper than going to Citibank right now. However, if we were able to allow them to put additional monies in there, like state benefits, like refund anticipation loans, and then use the programs that I'm sure many of you support, like IDAs, et cetera, to match those savings, that's how you begin to help them do asset development. Children's savings account coming out, $500 at birth, $500 per year, and match similar to IDAs. You can use it for buying a home, going to school, et cetera. So there's some things that are out there working. That's in terms of savings. In terms of employment, I'm doing some work with green collar jobs and Green for All, and one of the things that we recognize is that people don't, they were really excited about green collar jobs and they realized who they had to employ, and they were like, oh, I can't have those people up in here. And I'm like, they may steal from me. Yeah. So the idea is to engage insurance companies to look at alternative insurance products for bonding so that people can indeed get these jobs. Trust me, they're not the ones stealing from me. Last time I checked, Michael Milken was the one that went to jail, not Pookie because he was working at the hardware store. The other thing is recognizing that not everybody is meant to go to college. So don't penalize me because I don't want to go the way you think I should go. Thank goodness for Gates and Kellogg. They're looking at an alternative to a post-secondary credential, which would allow people to go online, put their interests in, allow people to give references, get young people to build social capital, and get them out of poverty. Because right now, out-of-school youth are 2 to 3 times more likely to become teenage parents. Last time I checked, you don't want to support that, and neither do I. So, I got 30 seconds left. I'm a capitalist, and I'm not ashamed of that. If you are going to live in this society, you better make it work for you. I'm all about a revolution. If it means I need to give up some of my cash for somebody else not to be poor, I'm willing to do that. Because right now, the issue for me is money is not the root of all evil. It's what people do with it that's criminal. Thank you.